I have a dear friend of mine that's on the RagingElephantRadio.com conversation line running for Harris County Board of Education. That would be R.W. Bray. What's up, Bray?
How you doing, Clever? It's good to hear your voice, man. I'm glad you're having me on.
Well, you're throwing your hat in the ring for Harris County, Board of Education. I'm happy about that. No matter what office that you eventually are victorious in, and let's hope it's this one, you have a heart that is unquestionably a servant's heart.
Amen.
And the people of Texas, your constituent, regardless of what office that you would be holding, would be much better off with your representation. And full disclosure, we're buddies, and we don't hang out enough. That's a problem. That's your fault. That's not my fault. I'm putting that on you. That's your fault, not mine. But we did work together in your senatorial district campaign. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But your life story, your individual life story is so compelling. Take a couple of minutes. I mean, about 2 minutes, with time running short here in this hour. Take a couple of minutes and just kind of tell people who you are, where you came from, how you got to Texas, if you can.
Okay. No, it's no problem at all. Yeah, I'm originally from Louisiana. Came up from Texas, from New Orleans, actually, during Katrina. For the second time, it was Katrina that really kicked me out of Louisiana and brought me to Texas. When Katrina brought me to Texas, it forced me to kind of step out on faith and do the impossible. I came here with a trunk of clothes and just a dream that maybe I could start my life over. I was in the Air National Guard. I still am, 12 years now. And I just decided that something was different. The thing that was impelling in me was during Katrina, the people whose bodies I was pulling out of waters and saving these Black Hawk trips was people that looked just like me. And I realized that for far too long, a lot of African Americans have believed the lie that the government can take care of them. The government letting us down, and we learned that. So now it seems like autonomy is the best way for not only my race to go, but every race and every individual, every American to go. And so Texas, it's a breeding ground for people who are willing to step out on faith. It's like an oasis for people who really want to have practice autonomy. And so now I'm just dedicated to making sure that freedom is given to us in Texas and support as much as I can. And one of the main voices that I started looking for was African American Republicans. And so enough, I ran into Raging Elephants, and I became a fan of Raging Elephants, still am today. And that was 8 years ago.
Talk with R.W. Bray. And you did run for senatorial, but to be a state senator, and that was a weird, wild race. But you've now focused in on the Harris County Board of Education, and even in your platform for state senate, education was high on the priority. What we had discussed previously was that you understood. I mean, and numerous times we have discussed this, and you certainly communicated it to your potential constituents over in that senatorial district, but you believe that it is educational achievement that is a primary escape for poverty, especially in the communities of color. Why don't you expound on that, R.W. Bray?
Well, I'll tell you, Clever, my reason to believe that education is minorities' escape from poverty is it derives from Frederick Douglass, which, of course, you know, it's a prominent African-American male who made leaps and bounds in America, along with Thomas Jefferson. Those two guys are kind of where I get the conviction from. And the conviction that they had was that education was the freedom to emancipation. And I still feel like that today. I still feel like too many times in the areas that matter most, those minority areas that are struggling, enough education opportunity is not given to them. And the education that is given to them, especially during these public schools have a monopoly over education. And that being said, they also have an opportunity then to manipulate education the way they see fit. I believe in charter schools. I believe in homeschooling. We forget that before the 1930s, we had some of the greatest minds, and we didn't have a national educational system. We didn't have the federal government making curriculum. Those were all state gifts that they gave to the people that lived within the state, and I still believe that can work. Matter of fact, I believe that many children need hands-on teaching. ACDE has programs just like that, alternative schools that take some of the public schools would-be failures and make them into achievers. The people that the public schools have written off and they give to the alternative schools, ACDE takes them and makes them students that can actually achieve something. I don't believe in writing off students, and I believe for far too long we've thrown out the baby with the bathwater when it comes to minorities and living in these areas, but not just minorities, but just children who are having a hard time adjusting.
Hey, we're talking with R.W. Bray, a friend of mine, running for state Harris County Board of Education. Has literally rooted himself into Houston society, is a strong conservative of color, and so. And what's the general reaction these days, RW, when you're out trying to get into the communities of color and getting your message out? Something that we tried to do fervently, earnestly during your senatorial district campaign.
You know, I got to tell you, the efforts that Raising Elephants put forth behind my senatorial race really opened a lot of doors in the areas that I was trying to get in the first place. I think what it did was it made my campaign extremely visual. The fact that we actually ran in a special, came in third out of 8 candidates was impressive to say the least. But I would say that a lot of African Americans are familiar with my name now, and that's been a huge plus, Claver. A lot of that is attributed to the efforts of Raising Elephants. I've just recently been invited to a number of different events, and some of these events are actually Democrats. And that's good, because that says that we have an opportunity to work across the aisle, and I have an opportunity to meet more people of color. The Asian community is embracing me. I think that's been extremely powerful. I'm learning a lot. Just working with them. African American community is coming around, and I think that's positive too. I think it's scary for some Democrats because, you know, when we ran, Claver, it was hard to get a lot of Republican votes because I was a unicorn, right? And,
right, that's
right. You can't find an African American public like talking about it. And so in the African American community, I would hit the same roadblocks in the sense that I had to, you know, prove to everyone that I was legit about, you know, making sure that we provided answers to the community. But now both sides realize that I'm authentic, and I think that's going to be favorable for the races to come.
Yeah, and you've had some forces arrayed against you in both of these campaigns. I mean, let's talk about the senatorial district campaign. I mean, you literally had GOP money going into other campaigns. I find it very odd that the day after the special election and all the votes are counted, now all the big power players are calling and trying to persuade you to throw your endorsement behind, you know, socialist candidates. But where were they, you know, during the regular election cycle, when now in this Harris County Board of Education race that you've entered in, we find out there's some pay-for-play going on, that your opponent, Mike Wolf, has been endorsed by Terry Lowry of the Link Letter because he gave him money, okay? That's just the way it is. Let's just call it like it is. And so I am really hoping that this time around that the liberty-minded would get behind your candidacy. And that's what I want you to talk about. When you're getting in front of these groups of color, when you're getting in front of Black Democrats, have they come to the conclusion that whatever has been tried over the last 50 years has done more damage, and they've got to be saying, we got to do something different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has been. I mean, you take into consideration that many of the Democrat leaders in the minority communities have made promises for over 50 to 60 years. But we've been doing this thing for 50 to 60 years, and those neighborhoods still look the same. You have other areas that are growing by leaps and bounds, and the so-called African-American leaders that were supposed to be looking out for them, from Congress to the local legislature, hasn't done anything. And that's because those individuals, they've been there and they grease their palms instead of making sure that the monies and the opportunities are funneled back down to the community. Well, you know, we don't. If that's where they're going to play, then it's time we start bringing, you know, the truth to the table. And so when I go to certain places, I start asking them, what has changed? What has changed in your community that has come from this particular leadership? And 9 times out of 10, I get back to the same thing, nothing. And that's sad. So obviously we're coming to a point where we need emancipation. And in order to have that, you got to have in 21st century abolitionists. And we don't have that right now. We need people on the side that people expect not to, and that is white counterparts, to step in and start doing exactly what we did long before, when Republicans actually meant something. When they start, you know, liberals had to find a way of changing the name from progressive to mean something that was negative. But we weren't progressive. And the liberal ideology isn't progressive at all. You know, to make a quick comment on the statement you made about, you know, when you have these limousine Republicans who are pouring money into, you know, candidacies that they want to win, I think that's what you see too. You see the same status quo. The GOP needs to grow, and I think people like Paul Ryan is bringing that to the table. But it's nothing new for the grassroots. grassroots knows that the GOP needs to grow, and that the only way for it to grow is to integrate themselves into communities. I'm not talking about outreach, because that's a hand-me-down, and nobody needs to pass on hand-me-downs. I'm talking about integration, where you integrate yourself in the community and you provide the answers. In reference to, the slates, I got to say this. I'm pretty impressed by Hosey. I know Hosey's slate was a slate that I had some issues with. I met with him privately, and I told him, I said, I don't pay to play. You either like my ideologies or you don't. And Hosey, as a man, he just stood up to me and said, I've never had anyone tell me. And he went with it. And I think if enough people just say, listen, this is my spine, I'm going to protect my spine at all costs. If you have a spine, you will do the same.
We're talking with R.W. Bray. And one thing I want to talk to you about, a communications nugget that we were trying to get across in your senatorial district campaign, R.W., was a poverty-stricken precinct in Houston or in Dallas or in Bexar County or in Travis County or anywhere in the nation for that matter, more than likely is going to have Democratic Party representation. On the west side of town, who controls it? It's politically, it's Republicans, is it not? On the east side of town, where there's no development, where you see people stuck in poverty, you have the poorest schools, it's Democrats. And the reason why you have this gap is because, let's say, those of us who live on the west side, we have jettisoned those socialist ideas that are destructive to economic development and wealth creation and good education and stable families. We've rejected the socialist policies that are destructive to those tenets and principles. There is a reason why on the west side you see unbridled growth, on the east side you see blight. There's a reason. Okay? You're going to have to get rid of that ideology, and you're going to have to embrace free market enterprise. You're going to have to embrace constitutional limited government. You're going to have to stop waiting for bacon coming back to your district, and you will see healing coming to your community. Your thoughts, R.W.?
No, I think everything you said is right on point. I think leadership starts from the top. And the reflection of African American communities, minority communities. I hate to use that word because the liberals have made minority mean minor, and in no way are African Americans or Latinos or any other people of color minor than any other race. The same opportunities that are afforded Caucasian, so the same opportunities that are afforded African Americans. It's just a matter of whether or not the individuals that are accepting these opportunities are going to go after 100% or not. The outcome has been that the current administrations have promoted laziness. There's no way around it. They encourage individuals to do nothing. The system is set up to where it enslaves minorities. It doesn't encourage them. It doesn't empower them. And the moment an African American is empowered, all of a sudden he's considered an Uncle Tom. The moment you see an individual fight themselves out of poverty, all of a sudden he's not African American anymore. He's not black because he's not struggling. I think that type of ideology is built from the left. It doesn't come from the right. The left likes to encourage racism, likes to make African Americans and Latinos despise whites, as if by some weird ideology that skin color actually can make you a better person, and give you more and give you more ambition or more drive, and that's not true. I'm a Republican because I believe that I should be left alone. I believe that I have the same opportunities as anyone else. I'm a Republican because I believe I don't want to be enslaved. I don't want to believe someone else's ideology. I want to step to my own. Now, if the Democrat leaders were to actually start promoting individualism as opposed to collectivism, we might start seeing something. You might start seeing a change. But because they all have accepted that for some reason altruism is virtuous, they've sold people on it, we've been failing. The communities have been failing. And so now it's time for people who are in their right minds to step in and say, no, you've had 60 years to change your community and it's still the same. So at this point, it doesn't matter what color you are, white or black. It doesn't matter what political organization you're with, whether you're Democrat or Republican. It's time for you to do what's right. That's why I appreciate, some of the patriots that, support, at times, they'll support anyone who is a constitutionalist. And they don't look at the R or the D. They look at the individual. But a lot of people don't practice that. That would be an MLK ideology. And you don't see many people talking about MLK ideologies.